Hello there. Welcome to this episode of Force Ghost Conversations. This is your host, Anthony King, and this week I'm joined by Aaron, aka Brown Leader from the Hyperspace Heroes Podcast, to discuss the third episode from Skeleton Crew titled Very Interesting, An Astrogation Problem. If you're a fan of the podcast and might consider pledging your support, there will be a link in the episode description for you to check out the various tiers offered. Also, please be sure to check out our TeePublic store to buy some Force Ghost Conversations merchandise. And without further ado, it is time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost Conversations. Okay, everybody, welcome back to Force Ghost Conversations. Boy, do we have another fun episode for you here this week. Continuing our Skeleton Crew conversations, we, of course, have brought on Aaron, aka Brown Leader from the Hyperspace Heroes podcast on this show. He was kind of on the show for just a hot second in our ICCC coverage where we got to interview him on site there at the convention. So we're thrilled to finally have him on the show. And I've, of course, been on their show a few times. So really glad to bring him on and talk about Skeleton Crew, have some fun conversation about the episode 3, which has a really wild title. Very interesting, As An Astrogation Problem. Okay. That's probably one of the most like science fiction-y, Star Wars-y kind of titles that we've gotten in a while here. I mean, it's not as clear as like From the Desert Comes a Stranger, right? From the Book of Boba Fett. But yeah, a lot of fun stuff to dive into in this episode, really around the concept of trust and this team kind of coming together and who can they trust, what can't they trust. Really just being exposed to something outside of that add-in bubble in a way that they've kind of been living in. But the barrier is both physical and metaphor at the same time of the planet. So interesting to see the crew experience this a bit, and we'll see how it applies for them as they go on. So of course, full spoiler warning for Skeleton Crew in our main topic discussion, which will happen just after this segment, which is known as Cloud City Gossip, where we run through the news of the Lucasfilm and Star Wars galaxy over the past week. And of course, the top news item is Skeleton Crew is out. 3 episodes now are out, folks, and it's on Disney Plus. So go check it out if you've been enjoying the conversations here, which I hope you have been thus far about Skeleton Crew. Yeah, I hope you're enjoying the show, and go check it out if you haven't, and then come right back to this moment to make sure that you are up to date and can engage and have an opinion yourself, and can follow us, engage with us on the social channels as well. Just a side note on that one again, our X involvement is going to be really diminished. It already has been really diminished, but we're pretty much just going to be posting like new episodes and like just advertising episodes on there. Like the engagement portion, I don't think I'm going to be doing any longer on X. So that will be actually transitioned over to like Blue Sky and Threads, where you can find us over there. Just search Force Ghost Conversations. So yeah, Force Ghost Conversations, Blue Sky and Threads. That's where kind of the discussion-y portion of Force Ghost Conversations will be, where we engage with the audience a bit more and like post questions, interact with folks. That'll be the space for that kind of moving forward here henceforth. So that is that. Yeah, so we're still on X, but it just really reduced, minimal capacity. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Blue Sky, and Threads. Search for Force Ghost Conversations. That's where you can find us if you want to engage in the conversation further. Back to the news now. Young Jedi Adventures, the kind of more kids-focused High Republic animated show on Disney Plus, has been nominated for 4 Children's and Family Emmys Awards, which is an awesome achievement. So congrats to everybody involved with the production of that show. They've been nominated for voice directing for an animated series, music direction and composition for an animated program, editing for a preschool animated program, and sound mixing and sound engineering for a preschool animated program. Whew, that's a lot. And I hope that they get all the recognition and accolades that they deserve, because it is a really great show. And I have it on my whiteboard here. I'm hoping that we can do a deep dive discussion into that pretty soon here. Maybe once Skeleton Crew is over. I know we've got Visions coming up. We've got Celebration coming up. Got a lot of stuff here on this whiteboard here that I want to get to. So we'll see when we get to it, but we will get to it one day. Mark my words. Also, a new cover has been revealed for the Acolyte visual guide. It is, of course, the helmet of the stranger from The Acolyte, which is one of the coolest things to come out of that show. So I can't think of a better emblematic item to put on the cover of a visual guide for that series. The book has been written by Pablo Hidalgo, and it will come out on June 17th, 2025, keeping in line with some of the visual guides and visual dictionaries that have come out for other Star Wars and Lucasfilm properties in the past. And finally, last news item is officially Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is now out. The new video game for exclusively on the Xbox right now, which I fortunately do have. I've been a proud Xbox owner for many years now. And finally, we're getting a nice exclusive on that platform for now, at least. I know it's going to come out on the PS5 and the PC pretty soon here, but for the time being, Xbox exclusive. And I've heard nothing but rave reviews about it. I have the game currently coming en route to the house. It should get here on Monday. I pre-ordered it, but I also did like the delayed delivery so that you can get like $3 towards a digital reward, which we often use for like renting movies and stuff like that at home that we're not able to see in the cinema. So that kind of is how we do things around here in the Force Ghost Conversations household. But can't wait to play this game. Like I said, a lot of people have been ranting, not ranting, but raving and reviewing in their discussion of the game. So I really can't wait to just dive into it. And honestly, it's going to be a long dive, I'll tell you that, because I've heard from online that people have like spent like 18 hours in the game and they've only done like 2 missions already. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is perfectly beautiful and just exactly what I need, but also not what I need because, I'm a husband and I'm a functioning person in society, I think. So it's just a lot. So we'll see how much I devote my life to it. Probably a lot. Let's be honest here. So Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is out now. If you got an Xbox, go get it. I think you'll really enjoy it and be on the lookout for an episode. Again, it's on the whiteboard. It'll be coming in the very near future. At some point, we'll do a discussion-based episode around it and the themes that it presents. So, folks, that is all the news that we had for this week in the Cloud City Gossip segment here of this program. The other side of the short break, we'll be back with Brown Leader discussing episode 3 from Skeleton Crew. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Force Ghost Conversations, everybody, or should I say, ARG. Welcome back to Force Ghost Conversations. I got to work on my pirate voice. This is the theme of Skeleton Crew is all about the pirates and the kids and the fun. And of course, we're here to chat episode 3 from Skeleton Crew titled Very Interesting, as an Astrogation Program. That's a wild title. I don't really know what it means, to be honest. But maybe our guest knows what that means. So we've got we've got kind of a first-time guest to the show, kind of not. You may recall from our ICCC coverage that we had a brief snippet with this gentleman on that. When we were at that convention, we had a little time to chat with him there. But formally, this is the first time we're officially having you on the show. We got Aaron, aka Brown Leader from the Hyperspace Heroes Podcast. Brown Leader, how are you doing? And welcome, reporting in, I guess is a better way to say it. How are you doing?
Yeah, right on. Brown Leader reporting in. How are you, Anthony?
I'm
it's
doing
good
great.
to see you.
Brown 21 is also reporting in.
Yes, Brown 21. That's right. Right on.
On the sub-satellite Hyperspace Heroes episode. This is. But yeah, thank you so much for joining, and we're here to chat all things Skeleton Crew here. And frankly, I want to start before we even get into this episode particularly, but just your overall enthusiasm for the show. And now that we have a few episodes at this point, I just want to see where you were at before Skeleton Crew even started. So like, what was your level of anticipation coming into this show? And I know that you described this show as kind of like this Amblin-like adventure. And I've been really curious with our guests over the course of this season, what that kind of means to them. So, what was your anticipation like? And also, what does an Amblin-like adventure mean to you?
Okay. Yeah. So building up to this show, I was really, I set no expectations.
Okay. I think that was probably healthy.
Yeah. This was the first show. From what trailers we got, the cinematography looked good. Definitely looked a step up from previous streaming series, and so that gave me a little bit of okay, let's see. And then they dropped a trailer. I tried to stay away from spoilers, and I accidentally heard one which
Mm-hmm.
was a little bit of a bummer because I always try to stay away from those. But it did actually give me a little bit of hope in terms of like, oh, that's an interesting story if those
Hmm.
rumors were true, which actually they ended up being about 90% true. But um, like I said, the cinematography looked good, and then they dropped. I think it was like less than a week before the show started. They dropped this classic '80s style. It was in the
Hmm.
4:3 ratio. I mean,
Yeah.
it was this total '80s vibe trailer, and I was like, okay, they have a sense of humor. They've got,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be some fun. And my only expectation was, I just wanted it to be fun.
Okay.
One of the things that we always ask our guests on our show, is, what does Star Wars mean to you? And to me, one of the fundamentals of Star Wars is fun. It's just got to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
I went into the theater at 6 years old, saw Empire Strikes Back, and it just blew my mind.
Right.
And the uh, for me, Star Wars, one of the core requirements has always been, it's just got to be fun.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be as deep as Andor. It doesn't have to, or Rogue One. Um, and so I was just looking for, if anything, I was just hoping for fun. Just let it be fun,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully let it be a little bit of a palate cleanser for the fandom.
Yeah.
Coming out of the last few series and how divisive some of those have been.
Sure. Sure. And I think that's honestly the healthiest way to approach the series. In that, I think we should all approach every series with this kind of way that we're approaching the Skeleton Crew now, which is, all right, let's see what you got.
Right.
Wow me, right? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like this show, and not to hark on, I know there's many opinions on the Acolyte, and I feel like that show, because of what it was, the timeline and what it was trying to do and introduce into the canon, that was a hang up for a lot of people, which was they weren't able to like check their minds at the door, right? They were automatically putting barriers on what the story could be. They're like, okay, there's a kind of prototype Sith character, and therefore all these people have to die because of what Kiadi Mundi says in the Phantom Menace, or so, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
they're already putting themselves into a box, and I think that kind of limited some people's enjoyment of it, because they're already looking for reasons to be like, okay, that doesn't work, that doesn't work, no, 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 no. Whereas for this one, people are just like, all right, it's kids having a fun adventure. Let's see what they're doing. Do I like
Right.
the kids? Maybe. Let's find out. And I think as a fandom, like you're saying, I think this is a great way for people to kind of hit the reset button a little bit. And then also, I hope, like we were saying here, I hope they can take this lesson to whatever is the next project. Andor season 2 probably is most likely the next project that we'll be getting in terms of Star Wars, and then Mandalorian and Grogu and whatever may come beyond. Like, this could be a great way for people to just like say, oh, okay, this is a reevaluation of how I approach this stuff on a week to week basis.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. And I think we might get, or no, yeah, actually, Andor. I think you're right. Andor is, because I know Vision season 3 is coming out too.
That's
So
also true. Yes, yes.
yeah.
Season 3. So, I mean, they said April for
Hmm.
Andor season 2, and I gotta imagine that because they announced season 3 for Visions, that they will kind of talk about it at
Hmm.
Celebration in Japan, and then probably
Probably.
summertime they'll
Yep.
probably release that once Andor's done. So if
Yeah.
Andor starts at Celebration in April, then they'll want to give it that space, I bet. So
That's a very reasonable timeline. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, I also forgot Visions too, and how could I forget that we got that
Hmm.
coming down the pipeline too? So another more. There's always something good in this universe that's
Oh yeah.
coming. It's like a friend told me one time, Star Wars is a wonderful, especially nowadays, is a wonderful buffet, and like all things on a buffet, right? There's something for everybody, and there might not be something for one person, but what you do is just walk right on past it and go to that thing that you've been you had your eyes looking at ever since you got into the restaurant.
Hmm.
You made a beeline straight for that, and maybe you'll like try something else in this buffet, and maybe you like it, maybe you don't get it again on your second plate.
Oh yeah. Right
um,
on. Right on.
so I always like that analogy there. So now that we've seen the full 3 episodes, at least I guess the first 3 episodes here in full, How do you feel about Skeleton Crew overall? What are your thoughts? Just initial reactions? How do you feel about it?
I'm enjoying it. I think I just posted the other day that I sit there from beginning to end of every episode with a smile on my face.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great.
Um, it's what I hoped it would be. It's fun. I
Mm-hmm.
think I think the casting was good. I think the character writing, the writers have done a great job with the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
characters. I think the kids have great chemistry as a group, and um, I think John Watts has done a great job as a showrunner, encapsulating a kids
Mm-hmm.
Amblin style adventure uh, of a journey,
Yeah.
and getting lost in space and having to find their way home. And I think it's hitting on all cylinders.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely living up to the hype. And I think that, well, when I say the hype, I feel like the Amblin like adventure that they keep. I felt like every time they went on a press tour, had a conversation about it, something they'd be like, "It's this Amblin like thing." And in the lead up to this, I was like, they keep saying that term, and to like people that are in the film discourse world, that means a lot to us, but like to the normal person that means absolutely nothing, right? If you were to ask like go into a restaurant and ask all the people, just yell out, what is an Amblin like adventure, they're all
Yeah.
probably gonna look at you and go, I don't even know what words did you even just spout to me right now.
Right.
um
Right. Yeah.
so
I
like I feel like the marketing was a little bit off on that one, just to pitch it to the entirety of the world, but to the Star Wars audience, I feel like it hit the mark. So what do you have
Well,
thought on that?
I think I think they were marketing it to my generation, my group. I
Mm-hmm.
think they were
Yeah.
marketing it to first generation fans, because we all know anybody that grew up in the 80s watching Goonies, ET, heck, even things like Jurassic Park, even though that's not a Amblin. And I mean, just all of those Explorers,
Mm-hmm.
the last or Navigator and things like that. The uh, it hits on when I say it hits on all cylinders in terms of an Amblin production, it really does.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
yes, my kids probably aren't, even though I think I showed my kids Goonies and stuff, but
You tried.
they're not going to know what Amblin is for sure.
Yeah.
And this I sit there with a smile on my face, because I do feel like I'm watching something from the 80s with modern
Mm-hmm.
production values. And if I didn't know John Watts was the showrunner, and somebody had said, and I'd watched a few episodes, and somebody had said, Lucas produced this and Spielberg directed, and
Mm-hmm.
it's an Amblin production, I wouldn't have doubted them. I wouldn't have doubted
Right.
them at all.
Right.
I mean, even down to the musical cues
Mm.
in when things are happening. Like I said, the dialogue between the kids, there's a little level of snarky and sarcasm
Mm.
between them. The rivalry. Heck, there's even I think it was the first episode. A Ferris Bueller
Yeah.
setup type scene between Fern and Wim, and it just, yeah, I'm just sitting here dumbfounded that I think we heard, what, like 4 6 months ago, it wasn't testing well or something, and it's been done in
Yeah.
production. It's been ready to launch for over a year, I believe, and it's been sitting
At
on the
least.
shelf. And I'm like, why? Why is this? And maybe it was all meant to be, because maybe after all the divisiveness in the fandom after the last couple series, this does seem to be pulling more people
Mm-hmm.
into a favorable light with the franchise, and in terms of live action uh, stuff. And maybe it was just meant to be that it's coming out at this time,
I think it was
to
always meant
serve
to,
as
like,
that.
from what I understand, it was always meant to have like a December release for whatever reason. I think
Hmm.
to hit on that cozy, family-like environment, family-friendly show, perhaps the most family-friendly show of the Disney Plus era.
Yep.
Um, and to just evoke these good, warm-hearted feelings that can also be, uh, I think, of this genre that is like December releases that we think of, right? So you're thinking of like your holiday film classics, and I think a lot of those classical heartwarming feelings are within the bread and butter of Skeleton Crew. So I'm thrilled to hear that it's hitting the mark with you, because in a way you're target audience here in some way.
Mhm.
If the Amblin like stuff is hitting with you, and it's probably hitting with the 10-year-old down the street that is, just watching Star Wars probably for the first time, or at least getting engaged with these stories for the first time. We don't really have a whole lot of media these days, whether it be film or television, that hits that broad range of like a 8-year-old can watch it and really enjoy it, and a 70-year-old can also sit down and just say like, this rocks, and fits everybody else in between there as well, which I think Skeleton Crew has done more so than anything in this galaxy since I know the Mando is probably one of those that kind of hits a lot
Mhm.
of the heartstrings for folks, but frankly, even to probably the original trilogy, or maybe The Force Awakens was the last time that it really was able to capture this feeling with so many people.
Yes, and I think you hit on something right there that I've thought about too, which is I think this will be a great entry point for, like you said,
I hope so. Yeah.
the 8-year-olds, the 10-year-olds. And the more I think about it, eh, growing up being 8 and 10 years old, watching Amblin
Hmm.
style stuff in the 80s, and it's sucking you right in, and look at the
Yeah.
nostalgia I have 40 years later
Hmm.
for this stuff. And I think that's I think it's like you said, it's for the old farts like me, and it's for the 8 to 10-year-olds, that I think it's going to be a great entry point into Star Wars,
Yeah.
because it goes back to that core fundamental of just fun.
Hmm.
And the kids in the most recent episode getting to go up into the turrets and shooting at the X-wings, which and just having these adventures and meeting all these characters, and I think they'll have a good lesson to teach through the character of whatever you want to call him, Silvo, Jod Na Nawood,
Crimson Jack.
Crimson Jack.
Yeah.
uh, I think there's going to be a lot there that is going to be great for that next generation, and it's going to pull some new fans in.
I agree. I agree. And I think too, like all those other Amblin things that have inspired it, you watch it at the age of 10, you have a different experience with it. You watch at the age of 20, you have a different experience with it. You notice and you pick up on things differently, you feel things differently. You watch it at 40, 60,
Hmm.
it's like a completely different experience, while still being a nostalgic thing, but you're also picking up on things like, oh, I understand where the parent is coming from a bit more now. I understand why they're not around. I understand why they're a little cranky after a long day and just throwing that pizza that they picked up on the table. Right. It just hits home in a different way, and I think Skeleton Crew has the chance to really do that
Hmm.
for the Star Wars fandom in a really cool way. So thanks for sharing a lot of your insights here, and now let's dive into the meat of the episode here. And frankly, I think the concept of trust is something that is explored throughout the episode. Crimson Jack or Silvo or Jod Na Nawood we learn that he has many names in this episode. We confirm that he is Captain Silvo, from the pirate gang. Uh, Kh'ymm calls him Crimson Jack, and the kids are all like, "I don't know who you are." There's not a lot of trust there, and then he tells them that, don't trust Kh'ymm. She might stab you in the back, and to much to Neil's chagrin, right? Like, what? Stab in the back? What? um, it seems like these kids haven't really been exposed to the concept of trust and learning that feeling between people, which I think will be a thing that is really at the forefront of this show. But like I said, most of the question of trust, is centered around Jod Na Nawood. That's basically the name we'll go with him here, since that's what he told the kids his name is. Brown Leader, if he's in Brown Squadron, do you trust him right now, Jod Na Nawood? Would you welcome him into Brown Squadron? Would he get a name and a and a call number?
He's the we'll go to a different franchise. He's the Starbuck
Yeah.
of the squadron, right? He's the rogue element. He's the one that you hatch a plan, and then
Hmm.
you're a quarter of the way into it, and he's going to take a left turn when everybody takes a right, kind of thing. And but somehow still comes up with the success in the end,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
um I think that's kind of how they'll gear him up to be. But yeah, trust is a great theme for this episode. You're right on about that, because it even extends over into the parents. So the kids
Hmm.
that
Good
whole
point.
planet at Atwood was everybody is raised to trust the system,
The
to
great
put
work.
to put faith and reliance into the system.
Mm-hmm.
And so they don't, the security droids, they're like, well, the security droids will find them. The trust the security droids, they'll take care of, Big Brother will take care of everything, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
The supreme, whatever, the
yeah,
supervisor will
supervisor
handle everything.
will
Yeah.
handle everything. And the kids are learning it through real life experiences, that there are people out there you can't trust, because
Mm-hmm.
Fern is right to be skeptical, and KB is as well. And the boys are just like, they're a year or two younger, and they're just going with the flow and having fun with the adventure, oblivious to how
He's a
shifty
Jedi. He's
yeah,
great.
exactly. But the girls are a little older, a little wiser, and so they're not necessarily trusting, and rightly so,
Mm-hmm.
because you do have to prove yourself.
Yeah.
And it's fun to see the different, like, between Neil and Wim, and then Fern and KB, to see those differences in attitudes,
Mm-hmm.
because the boys are all trusting and the girls are like, I don't know. And because they just met him, and yes, he's not compliant, and I think they're also used to compliance in a structure. And I think the girls are a little bit wise, for their years, because I would
Mm-hmm.
expect them to be more like the boys in a way, coming from their background.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I like that you brought up the parents first there.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was, like, honestly something I didn't really think about, that, like, yeah, there's a trust that they have with the system. They are part of the system. They have jobs. They're analysts.
Mm-hmm.
Theoretically, they're analysts. I don't know what Carrie Condon's character necessarily is. I thought she might have been the supervisor at one, and based off of what the first 2 episodes suggested, apparently she's not. So, like, it seems like the faith in the system is being rattled by them. So
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what that could lead to.
Yep.
I did personally really enjoy how, like, the security droid walked from seemingly the base or the police station, whatever they are
Whatever.
housed in,
Yeah.
and then seemingly walked all the way to the cul-de-sac house where they're at, and, like, that no like drive or like
Urgency.
urgency. Yes, that's the best way
Yeah.
to describe
Yeah.
it. They
Mhm.
just casually strolling up there.
The
They
kids
don't
are
care that all
fine.
these
We'll
kids are
find
off.
them.
They're past the barrier.
Yeah.
We can't do anything about it. So why make a fuss about it?
Mhm.
Like, no one's
Mhm.
getting past the barrier. No one's allowed to contact anyone outside the barrier. We're all stuck in here. And if they come back, they come back, and we'll probably prosecute them to the highest degree of the law for leaving.
Mhm.
And you can just see it on Wim's dad's face, right? He's
Mhm.
just like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. This is all
Mhm.
falling apart right in front of us here. So yeah, that trust is breaking down, and I like the dichotomy that you mentioned of the kids. Wim definitely wants to believe that there's anything outside of at Adden, and Neil's kind of along for the ride with
Mhm.
Wim. They're good pals, and yeah, it seems like there's a natural distrust of anything that is within at least Fern, and definitely KB. I think KB can't even fall asleep on the ship without keeping her eyes on Jod Na Nawood, and even SM33 doesn't even care for
Yeah.
Jod at all. He's like,
Yep.
he's like, where are they from? And he's like, I'll tell you something. They're from somewhere.
Yeah.
Man, no one trusts anybody on this ship, aside from, like, at least the kids kind of trust each other to a degree, but even there's some I guess favoritism in a way, where it's like, if something happens, like, if it, if the choice is put in front of, I think, Fern right now, right, Neil and KB are hanging on a ledge. You can only save one. I think she's saving KB. I don't think there's a I don't think she's necessarily making without a hard struggle. She's making that choice to say, all right, KB, you're coming up.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. But in the Amblin, in the way that this show is structured, though, or the style of this show, she would find a last minute
Oh,
way to
absolutely.
save them both,
She'll
because
find a
and way,
way.
displaying her leadership potential, because that's her character arc of
Yeah.
where she's
And
going.
then she'll say skeleton crews never say die. And
Right, exactly.
we'll all look off into the sunset
Mhm.
as the true treasure is revealed at the end.
You're right,
Um
exactly.
yeah, Jod Na Nawood is so fascinating here. And I they kind of allude again more to his force abilities. He declares that he's not a. I never said that. You all just
Hmm.
assumed I'm a Jedi. I
Hmm.
I might have, I mean he might have force sensitivity. I think that's it at this point. I don't think he was perhaps ever trained by the Jedi or whatever former remnant of the Jedi. I'm just going on a limb here. I don't foresee that was a part of his past life potentially. He might just like Broom Kid, just from the Last Jedi, just picks up a broom here and there, and that might be the extent of his abilities. Because I just going off of the first episode here, now that we know he's Captain Silvo, I feel like he might have put up a bigger fight against the insurrection of his of his crew if if he had more Jedi-like abilities in terms of his
True.
combat style rather
Hmm.
than just being thrown in the brig.
Hmm.
Um, so I
Or
don't
he
know
could,
where do
or
you land on that one?
he could have been biding his time too, knowing that he's not strong enough to take out all of them.
That's true.
And like he told the kids, what was the point of escaping? Because they were like, well, why didn't you escape earlier? Because the girls, again, questioning him, why didn't you escape already if you could do that? And he was like, well, because I didn't have a ship to get me out of here, so what's the point of
Yeah,
breaking out?
also
And
fair.
so he could have been biding his time. I think he got some training. I would not be surprised if they uh, uh I don't think they'll go the Padawan uh Order
Survivor of Order
66.
66.
Yeah, I don't think, and hopefully they don't, because we don't need another flashback. But I'm wondering if he did receive at least a modicum, a little bit of training at some point, just to give him some control.
Hmm.
Because he also has a certain level of confidence in his abilities that and like even just the whole, well, we're going to walk through a crowd, we're not going to sneak down an empty hallway, we're going to go through a
Mm-hmm.
crowd because it's
Mm-hmm.
easier to blend in than it is it's easier to not be seen by blending in.
Yeah.
And that takes a certain level of experience,
Mm-hmm.
skill,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know, maybe not. We'll see, time will tell. He'll definitely have the choice at some point in the series where he's got to choose the kids or the bounty, the booty, the prize. There's also a theory out there that he may have been a child from At-Aten at some point.
Mm.
There is
That's
that
an
theory.
interesting one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's floating around on the interwebs, and it's an interesting perspective, because
Yeah.
he does also believe them pretty fast about where they're going. So, like, maybe he's got some sort of insight about, to give them credence on what they're claiming.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I think like we're all saying here, maybe we're
Yeah.
we're living in this ambiguity of, well, next episode it could throw everything out the window that we just chatted about here, and that's the way it
Right.
goes.
Right. Yeah.
But I think at this point, yeah, it's like, well, we'll have to find out. Watch this space. Check in next week. We'll get more Jod Na Nawood talk, and maybe we'll get a greater understanding of this guy and what his backstory is, who he is, where he came from. Because he's like, I'm like you. I'm alone. I don't know what
Right.
I'm doing out here.
Yeah, that was an interesting line right there, and I want to say something too about Jude Law in particular. He really to me as the viewer, it feels like he's having fun with this
Yeah,
role.
no, definitely. That's for sure.
He's really just, usually when you see Jude Law, you think of a more serious role, drama based,
Mm-hmm.
and his facial expressions, his action, his body language, just to me reads as, I'm having fun with this role.
I agree.
Let's do this. And I'm enjoying that. And I want to see a little bit of a brigand. I want to see a little bit of a rogue, a Han Solo-ish type character, and what does he do?
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, keep watching this space. Skeleton Crew episode 4 coming out on Tuesday next week. More Jod Na Nawood time, and maybe we'll get some more of his story to flesh out the mystery behind this character.
Right
And
on.
moving to a different mystery, we got some more kind of details, but also not details, just more questions, I think, surrounding the planet of Aden. So it was defined as a jewel of the Old Republic in this episode. So what do you think that means, Brown Leader?
So, they talk about Old Republic, like on the Port Borgus, they say
Mm-hmm.
Old Republic credits, but they talk about the Great Work back on at Aten. And the Great Work was something started in the original 3 books of High Republic by
Mm-hmm.
Chancellor So. And Starlight Beacon was one of the Great Works from that portion of the franchise. And so my guess is, yeah, they're Old Republic credits to everyone in modern day or current
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's some sort of planet. It sounds like there was 8 or 9, I think they said in the episode.
I think 8. Yeah.
8 that were hidden away, and they must have been hidden away for a certain reason, protected
Mm-hmm.
for a certain reason. And in the first episode, when the kids are getting their lesson, they're talking about trends and fungibility,
Mm-hmm.
which is an economic term. And I'm wondering if it's got to do something with, some sort of money control, finance
I
control,
think it has to. Yeah.
with all the analysts and system engineers. And I don't know if it's just basically one giant Bitcoin planet, or something where it's
It's
like
the bank.
right, because fungibility is used with crypto and things
Mm-hmm.
like that. So I'm
Yeah, it's like the Wall Street in a way of.
I think I made a joke to to somebody else online about that, because they were like, well, what do you think they're learning? And I'm like, well, it's just the stock market and the inside trading, so that
Yeah, they're just finance bros. They're learning.
yeah, exactly.
Poor Wim's dad is just a simple finance bro out
Yeah.
there trying to make his mark in the galaxy.
I want to say something about Wim's dad real quick, which is, I had to laugh because Wim, I like Wim because Wim is, back in my generation, there's a thing called latchkey kids, and we're the kids, and I was a latchkey kid, and Wim is a latchkey kid. He comes home, he has to get himself ready, he has to get himself to school. That was me.
Mm-hmm.
And his dad is a total 80s dad, in the fact that his dad's like, I got to go to work early. Here's 100 credits. That's your lunch money for the week.
Eat for the week.
And you're on your own. And that was me. And I was like, I laughed my butt off so much. And I saw some people kind of questioning, not understanding Wim's dad, because nowadays, and I know, like, I was a different parent raising my kids. I was much more attentive. I was much more involved. And there's been I've seen a shift in parenting styles, and to some point where people overparent, right? Your helicopter parents, your bulldozer parents, that kind of thing. But not that we're going to go down that road. But some people nowadays didn't quite understand, and I'm guessing that those people were younger than me, obviously. But to me, it made perfect sense, because that's how some parents were. And
Yeah.
it just, I like his dad. I think his dad's great. And I think his dad, you could see in that meeting, he didn't say much, but the looks on his face, he was like, something's going on.
Yeah.
And I know from the trailers, I think there's some scenes with just him and Fern's mom talking about things, and she's going to put out a call to somebody, and I'm not quite, we'll see how that goes. But the two of them, I think, really become focused on trying to find the kids, I think, as the show progresses. But anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack.
No, but absolutely. And I think too, like, this guy is grieving, right? It's not it's told when Wim's mom passes, but it seems like it's still fairly recent.
Yeah.
And it seems like he's just one of those guys that, like, I'm going to bury myself in my work. I don't know how else to handle this loss and to move on and to create this new, like, existence that we're living in here. It seems like he's struggling with that and doesn't know how to handle those emotions and to work his kid through it too, right?
I think you're right.
Which is a very understandable, realistic thing that a lot of people go through. So when he's like, I need to go back to work now. I gotta work. Like, it's his comfort place.
It is,
because for those at least 8 to 10 hours that he seemingly is there, he doesn't have to be reminded of everything that he lost. So it's a sad thing that when your work becomes your escape. But watch the space again. We'll see if this if this adventure perhaps is a way for him and his son to overcome some of that loss and grief that they have endured.
Yeah, I think we'll see that towards the end. I think
Mhm.
we'll see that for sure.
I agree, and I agree to the point too where we're talking about the money here about Adden, or at least that being perhaps the treasure, the reason for it being hidden. Um, I'm trying to think, like, is it like a Fort Knox kind of deal in Star Wars, right? Where the gold is held out there.
Mm-hmm.
It was the bank of perhaps the Old Republic hidden away so that the Nile couldn't steal it, perhaps, right?
Mm-hmm.
That could be
Mm-hmm.
a very plausible reasoning for that. I'm very curious about what the other 7 planets that were quote unquote destroyed, I don't know what that means, um, will, what they perhaps offered up to the galaxy. But the isolation of this planet is so interesting because it gets brought up here, like, oh, we learned about Coruscant and Alderaan, and like, oh, well, you missed the war, huh? Yeah. Oh, so the Old Republic doesn't exist anymore. Oh, we're in a new republic. What?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
an empire. And I'm surprised that with all of like Palpatine's excursions out into the galaxy and trying to find things, and his search for everlasting life and the occult and stuff like that he didn't track down the myths of the lost planets of the Old Republic to see what treasures they might have had too.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious how they've stayed hidden. Like, I wonder if it was like like a moose, like not a Camino situation, right? If planets were deleted from the Jedi
Yep.
archive, it's impossible. You
Yep.
can't find it out there.
Good old Sifo Dyas, or yeah, what was his name? Not
Yep,
Sifo Dyas.
Sifo-Dyas.
Sifo-Dyas, yeah. Strikes again, taking a planet out of the
Yeah,
memory core.
did he take out more planets
Mm-hmm.
in the safety of him?
Yep.
And at what point were they like, no one's come in for years? I don't know. It seems like the people that are living and working in suburbia there's a clear disconnect between them, droids, security droids, and whoever supervisor is, that is like living in luxury, but also like hiding everybody from the secrets of what's actually going on in the world. Fascinating. More stuff to explore as time goes on in this series, because the parents are going to be the ones driving that narrative, I'll tell you.
Oh yeah, right on.
So I'm intrigued by the character of Kh'ymm, Kh'Ymm, in this series, both in terms of character design, because it's like an owl cat in a way, and in her demeanor / interest in exploring the galaxy. Do you believe that she'll have a greater significance to this story? And we'll start with that one because I have a follow-up question to this one then.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say. They came out with a Funko Pop already of the character.
Yeah, once you do that, it's like, oh, okay, maybe.
But then again, they've come out with figures and action figures of characters. Captain Zuvio from the prequels is the
I'm thinking that Rogue One
right,
black R2 droid that never
right,
came into scene. Yeah,
right. So not to say that that's not an indicator, but I don't know. I think if she's in the show again, I don't think it'll be very much. I think they're going to move on from here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think they got what they needed from her. If maybe she'll be in the background or part of a scene later on at some point, depending on where the story goes. But I don't think she'll play I don't think she'll be a major supporting character through the rest of the series.
Gotcha. So I'm going to agree with you that she won't be a major supporting character in this series. Keywords. I think she might be the key now to like unlocking the Ahsoka path to like hunting them down in a different show. So now that she's been introduced in this post Return of the Jedi Mandalorian era, I think there's an opportunity there for Ezra to be like, I don't know how I got back here, but I know Ahsoka and Sabine are out there doing, Lord knows what, and we just can't leave them out there. So I think that could possibly come into play, because whatever is in her scrolls and maps and things that have lasted for centuries somehow, that could, I think, be an avenue for inclusion later on. As much as like a Vane is now in this series in The Mandalorian, right? All these interchangeable characters in this shared universe.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. I think that's a really good. I like that. I could see that. I could totally see that happening.
All right, again, Mandalorian and Grogu, Ahsoka season 2 coming around the corner. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, my other question about, they go to this. Kh'ymm is on this remote moon kind of planet kind of thing. I was almost like, is this going to be Polis Massa? Who knows? It didn't seem to be, but there were X-wings on this outpost. So, Brown Leader, why do you think there were X-wings here?
Kh'ymm calls him as
Uh-huh.
soon as she sees Jack and the kids walking up. Crimson Jack, she's like, I know it's him, and for some reason he has kids, and you hear a female voice on the radio, and she was calling to have him arrested.
Yeah.
And so they came from wherever their base is. I was so hoping we're over here at our show, we're huge Carson Teva fans, and
I was pulling for it too. Yeah.
I was like, even though the markings on the X-wings were not correct because they're blue and that is New Republic, his is still the reddish brown from the Rebel days. But I was listening to the voices, I was leaning in, they do that slow pan to reveal the pilot, and I was like, they're trolling us, they've got to be trolling us. Because it's a slow reveal and it's an actor named Andy Powers. But yeah, it was and I think somebody posted something online that they are part of, they were called like Rangers from the New Republic or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hey,
So
tying into that lost property.
It could very well be. I still think there's a lot of potential for that. But yeah, it was, she called them. And so they came from whatever the nearest outpost was, to come and arrest them. And it was fun seeing the kids, because we always root for the good guys, right? And we're like, don't shoot at the X-wings, those are the good guys. But the kids don't know that, and that's
they're so unknown.
Exactly. They're so innocent, and they're like, especially Wim, and Jod Na Nawood puts him in the turret, and he's, of course I'm going to shoot, this is fun, this is action.
And it's so crazy he's putting like 12-year-olds into a war situation basically.
Well, Jedi Padawan, in the Clone Wars,
why
right?
not?
So why not? It's been done before. It's
also pirate. Yeah,
right?
Not the first time a pirate's not conscripted some kid into action.
Not at all.
Jeez, I was like, the implications here of like now, and then Kim's like, I can't really tell you. You wouldn't believe me. So I'm like, okay. It's seemingly like that narrative might be over for now, at least. But the bounty head that's been put on by Captain Brutus now, could open the door for who knows how many different types of bounty hunters and bounty hunter characters to like hunt them down. Like, I'm still looking for that Velociraptor T-Rex head character from Obi-Wan Kenobi to make an appearance in something else. Who knows? Maybe a Forlom, right? Come,
that'd be cool.
Get them back into the fray here, like Dengar. Come on,
right? Yep.
Who knows what we could get in this?
I'd be down with that. That'd be a lot of fun.
I think so too. And I'm at my last question here. This episode seemingly ends again with them getting the coordinates to where Aden is located. Do you think the crew makes it to that destination, wherever it's told? And based off of that, where in your best estimation do you think this story goes next?
I think it's going to have some sort of a wrap up. There was somebody had asked John Watts recently about, what about a season 2? And he goes, we could do a story. He's got a concept in mind. It would pick up several years later, based on, because the kids are already older in real life. But yeah, I think they're going to get back at some point. At Aten's going to be, I don't know how you get around not exposing it to the rest of the Republic. There's some scenes where X-wings are flying over like waterfalls and like some sort of cityscape, and I don't know if that's part of at Aten or not. So it's kind of hard to tell. But yeah, I think they've got to get back with their parents could come out to meet them.
They could.
And
I mean, those coordinates could also be widely off.
Yeah, exactly. So it's probably going to be a couple. Let's see, we've got 5 episodes left, so probably a couple episodes of wandering. But
probably around that episode 6-ish range. They find
6, 7 somewhere. Yeah, probably, or get the clue. But yeah, I think a
couple of bounty hunters stop them along the way.
Could be some side adventures, right? filler episodes.
Yeah. There's no such thing. Jaleel White comes in for an episode, more than just
Right.
saying a few words here and there.
I think we'll get more of him just based on some of the dialogue that he's had.
Honestly, I'm surprised like Vane isn't more of a bigger character in this.
I was
Based off
surprised
of
by
The
that too.
Mandalorian season 3, and at D23 when they had all the characters out on display, he was front and center.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, oh, maybe he'll be the captain of in the wake of Gorian Shard's demise.
Right.
Perhaps he would have assumed the next
Yeah.
role, but he seems like he joined Captain Silvo's crew, and then once the mutiny happens, Captain Brutus now takes over. Like, I don't know. Okay, maybe he'll prove himself in this instance and be the one to kind of trap them down. But yeah, I'm a little confused as to why that character isn't more of at the forefront of things in this.
Yeah, for sure.
So anywho, that is all the questions I had for this discussion here of episode 3. Very interesting. As an astrogation program, an interesting title by many stretch here. Brown Leader, where can the folks find you and the Hyperspace Heroes online if they want to listen to your show and continue the conversation with you guys?
Yeah, well, thank you. And thanks again, Anthony, for having us on, or having me on. I appreciate it. And having it, sorry, I'm always used to saying us. So you can find us on all of the social media platforms. We do weekly live stream shows Thursday nights, typically 8:00 Eastern. We'll have one coming up this week, and we might take a vacation for Christmas. I don't know. We haven't decided, but but yeah, you can find us weekly on YouTube, X, and Facebook, doing weekly live streams. And otherwise, you can find us all at all the socials. All of our links can be found at beacons.ai /Brown Squadron.
Wonderful. And to the listeners, if you're not following their show, the live streams are a lot of fun. You guys somehow get some of the coolest guests ever. So, like, you never know who's hopping on this week to come chat Star Wars, but you can always assume it's going to be someone fun and interesting.
We have a really cool guest coming on this week. That's going to be a lot of fun, and his company helps Lucasfilm get visions put together.
Oh, wonderful!
And he also was one of the original people to develop Clone Wars.
Hey, so look at that.
Yeah, so we're going to have him on this week. That's going to be a fun show.
That's fantastic. And of course, since it's a live stream, people can lend their voices in as well and build community in that sense too. So it's always a fun thing. And you guys are also out at ICCC just about every year moving forward too now. So, if you're in the Nashville area or you want to make the trip like I did, the podcast stage is a great place to meet up cool people like the Brown Leader and friends. So
yeah, it sure is. And it was so nice to finally meet you in person.
Likewise.
Yeah, we had a good time, and I'm glad we were able to get you up on the stage and have some fun with us. So
I agree. It was a lot of fun, and hope we can do it again soon in the near future.
Oh yeah.
And to the folks listening, thank you so much for joining in on this episode. Just talking all things Skeleton Crew, episode 3. We'll be back, of course, next week discussing episode 4, and we'll see if we get any more answers or clues or hints to some of the mysteries that we chatted about in this week's episode here. And until then, may the Force be with you. Take care.